Welcome to the With Winning in Mind podcast. I'm Heather Sumlin, along with my brother, Troy Bassham. And if you're new to our podcast, we are mental coaches. We've been teaching the mental management system that our father created for the past 20 years, and he's been teaching it for 45 years now. And so what we do with our podcast is we kind of talk about some topics that might be helpful to you in enhancing your mental game. So, Troy, every now and again, we'll have someone who sends an email, and they kind of let us know how we're doing or what they like. And sometimes they have suggestions. And one of the questions that was asked recently was the training video that we posted a few weeks back, where you were talking about training and how to enhance your subconscious skill. And you mentioned that you start with the best teachers. You get the best instruction. And his question was, what if you can't get the best instruction? What if the best instruction is not available to you because you come from humble means or they're just not accessible to you? So what do you do in that scenario? And can we talk about maybe how to find the best coaches for you?
Yeah, I think it's a good question on what we were talking about. The key there is I have to find the best coach that I can find based on where I'm at. Mm-hmm. So we're looking from two different directions. One is I don't have the means. Means could be financial. Means could be location. And then I'm going to look at it from a second direction, which is the level of the individual, the athlete. And sometimes you can have both. So I'll give you a combo, and then if we want, we can go into one or the other. I had a client years ago who was a fencer. Okay. Imagine that, working with the Olympic type fencing. And it's a combat sport, there's different styles of fencing you can compete in, and which means that there's different coaches. Obviously, they're going to, hey, I'm going to go more to épée route, more in full route. But, you have people that can kind of generally do everything kind of. Well, what do you do when you're in a city like El Paso, Texas, where they don't have strong coaching? Or at least at this time they didn't.
That's not the mecca for fencing?
No, El Paso is not the mecca for fencing.
Okay, so if you want to be a fencer, you're not going to find the best coach there, or maybe not at this point in time. This might have been years and years and years ago.
Yeah, Texas probably is probably not developing the cream of the crop when it comes to fencing.
Did not know this.
Other states are probably more. I mean, cream of the crop football, yeah. Fencing, it's less. I mean, I don't know of any fencers in the Dallas area. I'm sure there are some. I know we have a big event that happens every year in Dallas-Fort Worth in fencing. But this particular individual's from El Paso, and they're like, okay, we've gone as far as we can. Technique's really good. We're lacking in the middle game. Okay, great. But as we worked, it became apparent that one of the reasons why they weren't advancing is because they went from a technical standpoint as far as their coach could get them. What do you do?
They outgrew their coach to an extent?
Yes. And so it's like, okay, we need to go somewhere else. So you're seeking maybe there's someone in California, maybe go to the other side, on the East Coast, maybe it's out of the country. Now we live in a world today where we have the internet. So we were talking to our buddy Lucas this morning, right? For y'all that don't know, Lucas is our famous behind the scenes guy.
And we did a podcast with Lucas if you want to go back and check that out.
But he was giving us an example of this, where an individual was coaching two people, and they were all from different countries. Like one was from America, one was from, I think, Iceland, he said, and then the coach was in like Australia. And, they're, I think you said bodybuilding, they're doing weights and so forth, sending videos, and he's commenting back. So depending on the sport, you could very well find someone who's not local through the internet, through online means, and be able to have that. But what if you do you need someone more personal? Now it's because more difficult. Do you move? Do you not move? I know people who've actually legitimately moved to a coach. A good example of that is in the 1980s, where people moved to Seguin, Texas to work with our father when he ran the International Shooting School.
The majority of the people that were at that school were from countries on the other side of the world.
Yeah. So the first part is you want to find the best coach that can get you to ultimately where you want to be. we suggest people avoid let me figure it out on my own, see if I like the sport, and then if I do, then I'll go find a good coach. Well, if you already have a good coach in the beginning and you like the sport, they're going to elevate that growth much quicker.
You'll be less frustrated as you're learning the sport.
Well, they're going to give you guidance of things that you might have made mistakes on that you could avoid it with a good coach. For example, if someone comes into a sport and they don't know anything about the equipment and they get a good coach, versus, someone that's, someone who's not a good coach might just say, hey, just go with this, see if you like it. And then they like it, but they're not developing good habits with that equipment. So for me, like, I would not suggest someone get a low end rifle to get into rifle shooting because I don't want a bad trigger. I want them to learn proper trigger control from the very beginning. If you have a trigger that's sloppy and it's got some issues, just because it's not as quality of a rifle, they're going to develop bad habits. So then when we upgrade that equipment, what happens? The bad habits are going to come with the new equipment.
Right.
So, but a good coach, in my opinion, a good rifle coach would say, no, we want this standard of equipment here and up. And you'll have other people that say, I just want to pick up. I mean, how many of us pick up a sport and we just go to the local sporting goods store and I'll just get it off the rack. And then you wind up taking it seriously. You go to get a good coach and the good coach is like, who told you to get this? And you're like, oh, well, I got it. Yeah. No. And then it could delay them. So that's really what we mean by getting the right coach in the beginning. Someone that if you like what you're doing and you want to take it to the next level, they already can get you beyond that level and they're going to save you time at the beginning. Once you've outreached that person, you need to make sure, have I really gotten as much as I could and I need to go to a better coach? Or is the reason I'm not getting more out of this coach is because I'm not really doing what they're telling me to do?
Or I'm not understanding what they're asking.
Yeah.
I think sometimes there could be a communication difference where they're not understanding what they're being asked to do. Maybe the coach is really good and could help him, but they're not on the same page.
Yeah, I just don't want someone leaving the coach. I don't want to suggest people, I got to leave my coach. Troy said, get a better coach. I see this happen too much. I see people that are with a good coach. The coach is actually perfect for them, and they wind up changing because, I've been to this person. I'm really not getting any better. Okay, but you've won using this coach. You've had success using the coach, and then you change for the sake of change when you don't have any viable stuff. And to me, that's what I want to avoid. I don't want people just to change because, I think this person, with like the newness effect, I'm going to change my equipment because new is better. It's like, nah, not always the case. Stick with what works and just make it work more often. But we say find the right person. So when you want to build subconscious skill, it's this 2-step process. It's very simple and straightforward. The first thing you do is you get a quality instructor. That means someone who knows what they're doing beyond the level that you currently are at or want to be at. Because what if you want to take it further? If they can help you with that, great. I'm not saying, you go find the best of the best. You just need to find someone who can get you to the level beyond what you're seeking. And then 2 is you need to take a lot of repetition when you practice. You need to get a lot of reps in. And if you don't, then you're not going to succeed.
So you actually have to practice.
Yeah, you have to work on your craft. You can't sit there and say, I'm spending an hour of my time, actually practicing, but I'm at practice for 4 hours because the other 3 I'm talking. That's not repetition.
Well, and it's also taking what you've learned from your instructor, applying it when you're not with your instructor so you see improvement. So when you come back, there's a way to excel and exceed and continue to move forward. If you're not this was like the piano example. I think we talked about this in a previous episode where we took piano, but we didn't always practice, and there's no progress without training. There's absolutely no way to progress if you don't have training. What's cool now, I think I could pick up the piano better now because now you can do YouTube videos and you can practice without having to schedule because I can do it anytime that I want with YouTube.
We took piano lessons. We didn't take 2 piano. That was the problem. If we took 2 piano, it'd have been a different story.
Yes, Probably so. And the progress didn't happen fast enough because we weren't putting in the time, the effort, and the training.
So I get another addition to this coaching question. The person was talking about, okay, well, what do you do if you don't have the means? We both work almost got tongue-tied there, a demographic where a good percentage of our clientele, I'd say roughly 50% of my clientele is going to be under the age of 22. So that means they're a high school collegiate level athlete. And so a lot of the high school athletes go to college because that's where they're going to get better coaching. That's where they get better opportunity. That's where they can get a higher level of competition.
Well, and maybe their sport can pay for their education.
There you go. A lot of potential benefits there. But I think the one that people assume is going to work and that doesn't sometimes is the better coaching. So I'll give you a perfect example. I'm talking to an individual last night, and they're at a university level. And they called me 2 months ago and said, okay, I'm going to my junior year. I want to do better. I'm done just being average. I want to go to NCAAs. I want to experience competing at the NCAA championships. The team's not good enough to make it. They're in an individual sport. The team is not good enough. Okay. And so I'm going to have to do it on my own. And can you give me some guidance? Now, I've worked with this individual before, so I've no problem. And work with him and say, yep, we could do that. Well, one of the things I suggested is, look, if you want to go to the NCAA championships, understand we live in a world today where we're getting our Olympians from college in rifle shooting, in gymnastics, in other sports, probably wrestling would be another one, swimming, diving, definitely track and field, those areas, we get a lot of our Olympians from the collegiate sports. So if you're going to want to be at the NCAA championships, chances are you're going to have to get close to that level. Now, that doesn't mean you have to be at that level. You don't have to win, but he wants to go, which means you got to be in the upper echelon. And I just looked at his training and said, look, you have to train more. You cannot, with the hours you've got here, you're not going to get it done. You need more time.
Because he's not getting more reps.
Exactly. You need more reps. What's interesting is the coach said no. His college coach said no.
Oh, wow. So then at what point do you advocate for yourself and do what you need for you? Would that be going against the coach? I mean, is that...
Yeah, it's a sticky situation because as a freshman, if you go to college, I would not suggest that you tell the coach, hey, you might be great, but I know what works for me, so just let me do what I want to do. That's probably not going to go well. No. But once you're a junior, you've had a couple years to develop a rapport with the individual. And what if you're not improving? What if you're doing what the coach suggested and you're not improving? When it comes to individual sports, especially, it is possible that you're going to have an outside coach outside of college. In this example, this individual does. Okay. And their view is like, how do I tell my coach that, hey, your way is not working. I need to try another way. And so it's simply, you don't say that, but if the coach wants what's best for you, then open up that dialogue. So, okay, I really want to go to the NCAA championships. How can I get there?
Right.
All right. Now the coach is more open to that. And the coach is like, well, what do you think? Okay. Or they could say, well, we need to look at doing this and this. Okay. Because maybe the coach's goals are not in line with your goals.
And they don't know your goals if you haven't expressed that.
Correct. Because the team goals might be different. So, and, what if the coach, if they're not winning, they're probably not going to keep their job. So what if they're like, look, we got to finish top 3 in our conference. As long as I'm finishing top 3 in the conference, we're good to go. Last year, there was a university fired their coach because they had him for 4 years. All 4 years, they finished dead last in the conference. And they said, we're getting rid of him. Now, I could have told you 4 years ago that was going to happen, because the individual that they hired was not going to be able to get the team because they happen to be in the strongest conference in that sport.
Okay.
And so you're hiring someone that doesn't have experience in developing All-Americans. And you're going up against 3 other schools that's there's only 6 teams in this conference, right? 6 schools in the conference. 3 other teams are producing multiple All-Americans.
Do you think also that sometimes coaches don't know how to build the self-image of their players or their athletes, and therefore that could be an issue?
Well, I think that's spot on. I think a lot of people don't. So I look at it and say, I'm convinced most people don't train properly because they're only look at developing subconscious skill. They're not looking at developing confidence. The old school way of thinking is you either got it or you don't.
Right.
I like the Moneyball approach. I love the nice way of saying it is he lacks confidence. And Brad Pitt's character, he looks over and he goes, well, give him some. It's like, can you picture, you just go to Walgreens and you go to the
confidence
where's
pills?
the confidence jar? I need that. Oh, here we go. We got awesome confidence. Yeah, I like that. It's on sale. And I go over there and I'm like, okay, here you go. And take 2 of these. In a week, you're going to have confidence. It doesn't work that way, but he's not far from where you need to go. You give him some. In other words, if you don't help build the individual to gain confidence, how are they going to have the self-image that they are as good as you think they are from a technical?
So one thing to keep in mind, if there's coaches that are paying attention and you're watching this and you're like, oh, I would love to be able to give my players confidence. I have no idea how to do that. I would recommend you read this. Read Parenting Champions. I know it says parenting, but it could just as easily say coaching. And I think that the tips and the ideas and the strategies that Lanny puts in that book would be valuable to you no matter what you're coaching.
No matter.
And then if you're an individual who is the actual athlete, read With Winning in Mind and read Attainment, because that will give you an edge over your competition on the mental game and give you some ideas of some of the strategies that we teach. But more importantly, join our Patreon membership, because we spend a lot of time diving into the nitty-gritty and the nuts and bolts of how we do what we do and how we can help you succeed more in your sport, no matter what the sport is. So I just wanted to do a little plug there because it fit with what we were talking about on building self-image.
Yeah, and this goes back to the very beginning question as far as how do you find a good coach? In our view, we would recommend find a coach that understands how performance is generated. They can help you focus better. They can help you build confidence. They can help you, especially with the skill set that you need, if they can build that area. So that also probably means that you need to gel with the coach. If you don't click with them. So when I'm working with high school athletes that want to go play college, I tell them, especially, I'm picking on individual sports. And the reason is because in individual sports, it's a smaller team, typically. So there's more interaction with the coach. Where as opposed to, if you're on the football team and you've got, how many players and you got one head coach. Now, I know you have a bunch of assistant coaches, but let's just face it, you're not going to be able to have, the
one-on-one.
Yeah, especially with the head coach, as you are with maybe a golf team or a shooting team where there's only a dozen.
Or even a gymnastics team or a cheer team, you've got a smaller amount of people sometimes.
Yeah, you have sports that there's less than 10 people. You take golf only needs 5 people to compete. So you're like, okay, so usually they carry about 10, maybe 12, maybe 8, depending on how it fluctuates. Right. But you're going to know that head coach pretty well. And I tell them, so look, if you don't like the coach, I don't care how good the school is. I don't care if you go there and go, oh man, this is the best campus experience ever. I love the environment. I love the weather. I love the whole thing about the environment. Or, man, they got awesome education here. Like some of the best teachers. So what I want to major in, this is the place to go. Oh, the facilities are top notch. Right. Whatever it is, you can add all that stuff together. It will not combat not getting along with the coach. If you don't click with the coach, all that other stuff is not going to matter.
You're going to wind up not
participating
in the sport.
Yeah, you're going to hate it. And so you go to these school visits, the coach wants to recruit the best. Okay.
Well, and good point too is that the coach is recruiting you, but you are also interviewing their program. You are trying to find out, are you a fit? So it's not just the coach is determining whether you'll fit on their team. You're also determining whether you want to be on that team if chosen. And that's the point that you're trying to make is, do you gel with that coach? Do you agree with their philosophies, how they train, what they offer? Ask the questions.
There's a question that is not asked enough from the individual going to the school that they should ask the coach. And the coach isn't asking this question to the individual, which is interesting. from the people that I work with. Okay, this is in my environment, so it might be different with other sports. But they go to visit, and they get like 5 universities, and they just want a college scholarship. I just want a scholarship. I want to compete at this level, right? And I'm like, okay, so when you're there, you need to ask the coach this question: how, if I'm fortunate to come here and play for you, how are you going to make me a better athlete and a better person by the time I graduate?
How are you going to improve me?
Yeah, and they were like, well, why would I do that? I was like, because you're choosing to go there. It's your time, your money, your effort, your energy that you're going to give them. What are they going to give you in return?
Right.
You want that coach to give you a personal example. Now, I've had 2 people that actually did this, and they did it. They went to 2 different university visits. Both of the coaches gave them the same answer. Had nothing to do with them. Had everything to do with
very
college.
General.
Yeah, as well. The great thing about college is we go to more competition, and we do this and we do that.
But it wasn't like a specific, this is how I'm going to invest in you and your journey.
Exactly.
Wow.
But then here's the other thing. In both of these examples, I asked them, I said, did the coach ask you this question? Because I tell all my athletes that go on visits for colleges is that you need to be prepared to answer this question. Because if I'm a coach, I would ask this question to you. I would say, okay, Heather, I've got 1 spot.
Right.
I got 4 other people I'm looking at. Okay. It's not going to be an easy decision, but I had to make a decision to choose one of those. Why should I pick you over anyone else?
Absolutely.
What's going to give me the confidence that you're going to make our program better from an athlete's perspective?
Yeah, and you're jumping right in my wheelhouse because I work on interview training and preparing for those kinds of interviews. You better have an answer to that question. You better know the answer to that question whether they ask or not, and you should wiggle in that answer anyway so that they can trust in you and be excited about you joining their team. You should walk out of that interview with that coach and they feel like, man, I really want to find a way to bring that person onto my team.
Yeah, I wish I would have done that when I was in college. It would have been a different perspective going in because I would have known what to expect instead of having that first year figured out because that report and that kind of stuff.
You know what's cool? So we've been doing college visits for Ashley and going to some clinics and stuff because she'd like to cheer. And one of the coaches of one of the clinics reached out to her and sent her a text message actually and said, hey, saw you at the clinic, would love to have you come up, do a tour of the school and come to one of our practices and participate. That's huge. It made her feel like important. And she wasn't, I don't even know if she's interested in the school, to be honest, but it made her excited to check it out again. And so we'll probably will and go see. I have a feeling it might be out of my budget, but we'll find out. Hope they have scholarships.
The Go Fund My Daughter page for college.
Right. Have any suggestions? Let me know. Oh, speaking of coaching, one of the other things that I was going to mention is funding. As a fact that sometimes maybe the coaching that you really need is outside of your budget. And one of the things that we talk about, you talk about it in attainment, about opportunity and making opportunity happen when it may not be available to you in the moment. Look for ways to increase your opportunity. Meaning, if you don't currently have the money to be able to afford the coach, maybe you reach out to the coach anyway and find out what their suggestions are. If they don't answer, they don't answer. If they don't reply, they don't reply. At least you tried. We've had people reach out over the years. Circumstances are such that they need help. Even if we couldn't help them, maybe we have an option for them that would match their budget. They just don't know it. And so you never know unless you ask. The answer is no if you don't.
Answer is always no if you don't ask. Yep. So when you look at it from that perspective, you're looking at from an economic standpoint. But depending on your sport, there might be ways that coaches can help their individuals. Now there are some that just like, nope, I do this, I take a limited amount of people, that's it.
And
okay.
That's fine.
And so okay, that's not an avenue. I'm going to have to go another avenue. And there's individuals that can get you to the level that you want if you seek them out. And it's not hard. You look at reviews online, friends, other competitors that you've become friends with. You say, hey, who are you working with? Where should I look to in this area? And they'll give you some guidance. People are reluctant to refer coaches to other people unless they truly believe in that individual. Because if it doesn't work out, who looks bad? The person referred it.
Yeah.
Like, I've had somebody come up to me and said, "Oh man, I am so sorry."
Because they referred somebody to you?
Well, yeah, they referred, and they're like, well, because later they didn't have any personal workings with the individual. They were friends with the individual, and then they found out that they were very limited on their technical part of it. And I'm like,
I'll get a text occasionally from a client, and they'll say, "I gave your name to someone. I hope that's okay. I gave them your number, and in hindsight, I'm sorry." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" And she's like, I just don't know if it would be a match or not, and I should have asked you first. It's always worked out great, though. It's always been good. And so refer people to the coaches that you care about, that you think you're seeing improvement with. Go ahead and refer them to someone else. As we're looking at everything that we've been talking about today, what are the big takeaways that we want to leave people with? Find the best coach that you can.
One, verify that the person you currently work with, your coach you currently work with, are the right coaches, and I'm implementing what they want me to implement, and go beyond that. That's
and we're on the
step
same
one.
page.
Yeah, because you might be exactly where you want to be, and the last thing you want to do is eat some humble pie and come back and say, "Hey, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. Can I come back?" And here's what I had a conversation, had lunch yesterday with a coach.
I hope you had lunch yesterday. Oh, okay.
With a coach, and he'd been working with this individual for years, and they have moved on to somebody else. And I'm like, well, they might come back in a few years. He goes, but it'll never be the same. Oh. He said, once someone leaves you and then they come back, there's like, well, they didn't trust me to stay. How do I know they're going to trust me when they come back? So there's a little bit of that, and it takes it, and I told them, I said, hey, I know of an individual that did that, and they went back a couple years later. Eating humble pie is not.
Sometimes there's
not
growth
easy,
there too.
But you're like, look, I made a mistake. Apologize. I want to come back. Will you take me? And they say, yeah, we'll take you. And in some cases, maybe the second go around is better, right?
Because they learned something.
Correct.
Potentially.
But you can avoid that by just making sure, okay, nope, I'm at the right place. Okay, if okay, we need to elevate, then you want to search and find out, okay, who is the best person for you? And I would talk to them before you start working with them. Like when we work with people, we do a 20-minute, we call it evaluation. It's an opportunity to evaluate if I want to work with an individual, but there's also them working with me, because I kind of like to just be who I am. I like to have fun. I like to tease and kind of, because to me, if it's not fun, I don't think you're going to learn. How many people learn in a boring environment? I think you retain more if it's in a fun environment than if it's ultra serious all the time. But I also know there's people that are very good, but they're very serious and they're structured, and they're very good coaches. So it's just a different coaching style. If you don't like that style, then maybe it won't work. Well, better to spend 20 minutes where you're not being charged than now I dived in and I spent I don't know how much money and how much time, and then I realized it didn't work. And communicate with people are where you're at, where you want to be. Those people say, hey, if you were in my shoes, who would you go work with? And you'll get a list of people, and you can go from them, contact those individuals.
Maybe interview people who are where you want to go, is what you're saying, and ask them to clarify what they would do if they were in your shoes.
Yeah. That's one of the great things about the sport I grew up in, is there's not a lot of sports where you can compete right next to the best in the country or the best in the world.
Right.
I mean, I had an individual that was shooting in her very first big match, national match, and the national champion is shooting right next to her.
That is so cool.
And she was just so nervous and that kind of stuff. And I told her parents, I said, video your daughter shooting, but make sure that you're also incorporating the other person. Because you want to say, what are they doing? How are they setting up? How are they handling themselves? What's their body language look like? You can learn a lot by being right there. You don't get that in could you imagine? That would never happen in football. You're not going to go to high school practice and Aaron Rodgers is going to show up and throw the ball. It's just not going to happen.
Probably not. That would be very cool, though.
It would be awesome. It would be awesome. You're just not going to have that opportunity, to compete in certain sports. But in the ones that you can, you have access to those. And the people that you have indirect contacts to their contacts. So, hey, I don't know anything about this. Oh, but I know so-and-so that knows someone that's in that area. Hey, what do you think? Maybe he's told them Maybe he's like, hey, I'll give you his number, or I'll call him and I'll ask him, that kind of stuff. So, find people that they're going to steer you in the right direction. That'll save you a lot of time and headache.
So ask lots of questions. Know why. If you're seeking an opportunity to compete at the collegiate level, prepare for those interviews with those coaches. Have a really good understanding of what you're looking for in a program and that they can get it for you. And then believe in yourself. Build your confidence. Start on the mental game early. If you've enjoyed this, like it. Go ahead and subscribe to our channel. If you're not a Patreon member, I highly recommend that you become one, because we're going to dive into how to find the best coach, whether you're a beginner, an intermediate, advanced, or elite competitor, and what are the differences there. Bye, guys.